Hi guys, it's Kelly Latevola here, and I'm back with another video for Neat and Tangled. Today we're going to be talking about pastel coloring. Yes, I know we're heading into fall. I know. That's okay. So I'm using the Scales stencil, the So Foxy. I showed you the Celebrate You, but I didn't end up using it. I did use the Floral Frame, though. So I'm just going to stamp down all of my pieces parts. I'm going to be using the coordinating dies for everything that I'm stamping. So I want to make sure that I space them far enough out in the MISTI that I will be able to get a clean cut. I also like, honestly, I like when I can put all of the dies on at the same time, and it minimizes the amount of times I have to run it through the Big Shot. I know I'm lazy. I'm cool with it. So I'm using Intense Black ink from Simon Says Stamp. It is Copic safe, and I'm using that because I'm going to be doing some Copic coloring. So, pastels. Yes, I know we're heading into fall, and that's typically really rich jewel tones. However, I'm not ready to commit yet. That's just where I'm at. I'm not ready to let summer go. I love living in a state where we have 4 distinct seasons. So in Ohio, when it is winter, spring, summer, fall. There's so many different things to look at, and it's a beautiful area. But I don't know, maybe it's not just me. I always feel like winter lasts longer than any other season. Like, I just feel like it is forever. So anyway, let's talk about this coloring a little bit. I used a very warm and E50 as my base. And then I'm going to go in and add some shading on top of that with some warm grays. Why am I doing this? Because I wanted my fox, who is adorable, by the way. I mean, how cute is that little guy? I wanted him to still be fox colored, meaning like more typically with foxes, and yes, I know there's Arctic foxes and the like, but they have a more red-brown feel. And so I still wanted him to be pretty warm, but I wanted him to also go with the rest of the card. And the rest of the card is going to be in pastels. So I'm still adding shading. You're still going to add shading to your items that are pastel. And I think that is where some people get a little bit lost. So I'm doing everything I would normally do if I was using darker colors. I am putting my shadows where they would go. So from behind his snout, where his arms and his hands are set behind this banner, the bottom of his feet, it is technically the bottom of his feet from our angle, but the portion of his feet that's closest to the floor, and then from his tail behind the banner, adding shading to all of those things. I am using, you can see my pen's almost straight up and down, the marker's almost straight up and down, and that's so I can use just the tip, just barely touching the paper to flick in some texture. So you just want to barely touch the tip of the paper and then flick outward. We've had this discussion before if you watch my channel. Some people are more comfortable flicking away from themselves. Some people are more comfortable flicking toward themselves. I'm an away from myself. That's more comfortable. It's a more fluid motion for me. But try both. See which one works for you. I don't know if there's ambidextrous marker flickers, but you could be one of those. And sometimes you have to be, honestly. But the flicking away for me always seems to work better for me. So I'm working from my lightest color out to my darkest. And what I added in my darkest color, I added in a very minimal amount because I do want it to be softer. I'm going to use C markers to do the banner, which is one of the reasons why I opted to do warm grays for his fur. So because I didn't want him to be just all very one note. I wanted him to have different colors in there. So adding shading around his face, adding shading to right underneath his chin and next to his legs. You don't have to add any shading necessarily to the tip of his tail because it's not two separate things, but I like continuing that texture that I created in his body and in his tail into the tip of his tail. So I tend to add some, but not necessarily as much. Like I'm probably not going to go all the way out to the W5. For the banner, you're going to add shading where it's folded in on itself, And then I always like to add almost like a little triangle. I'm still doing the flicking, but like in a triangle shape in the center of each side. And that's going to help give it more shape so that it looks like it is pushed in. It's inset where his feet are coming out. I just bumped the microphone. I'm not sure if you heard it. I am sorry. I don't care enough to stop the voiceover. That's my apologies. Not that I don't care about you. I love you and you're beautiful and you guys mean so much to me. But I am on a time constraint here and I'm not restarting this thing. So, and maybe none of that was necessary because maybe you can't even hear it. Whatever. Decisions are made and we're moving on. So for, again, we're using, the C5 is the darkest color, but you can see I'm using very, very minimal amounts of it. I'm not using a lot. I don't need a lot. And that I think is the hardest thing about coloring anything with lighter colors, because if you use like a C1 and a C3, you're not going to have any dimension because you don't have enough contrast. And then people look at it and you think to yourself, that doesn't have enough. And so you want to keep going darker and darker. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Darker colors are good. Darker colors create contrast. We should not be afraid of darker colors. Darker colors are our friends. But you don't want to add so much of it that it makes the overall stamped image that much darker. So I'm going to do the same thing with the flowers. I've picked some RVs here. RVs are kind of, the ornery child, I guess, of the Copic markers because they're very difficult to blend sometimes. I don't know if it's because of the brightness factor, but a lot of times trying to get them to blend is very difficult. So when I go in, the RV04 is the darkest color. You can see I'm adding about 3-ish little flicks to each petal, and that is it. So very, very minimal of the darkest shading on this flower. Speaking of, they were actually pretty well behaved. So since the last time we chatted, they call them stations. At my son's school, they call them stations, and they have math stations and they have reading stations. And so I volunteered to go in one day a week and spend about an hour and 20 minutes ish doing a reading station. Not the math, because numbers are hard. At least for me anyway. I'll leave that to other people who know what they're doing. Yes, I know I'm talking about kindergarten math. No, I don't feel bad about myself. Okay. So the reading station, I didn't know what to expect. He's my only child. He's the one that made me a mama, and I have never volunteered in a kindergarten class before, so I didn't really know what I was getting into. But I do know that it's an opportunity for me to spend some time with my son and getting to know his classmates while helping out teachers who, let's be honest, are always on the hustle. They do so much for their students in their off time. I just have a mass amount of respect for them. So went in to help. And I walk in and they're all sitting on the carpet, and it's like the little, color block carpet, and they're listening so good, and, they're talking in their whisper voices, and they're just the cutest stinking things you have ever seen in your life. They're adorable. And, so, she gets done talking and she's like, we have a special helper today. And she says to my Peanut, she said, do you know who the special helper is? And he gets like super excited and he's like, it's my mom, which just melted my heart. So glad that I did it. And so she explains the stations to the kids. There are 4 stations. One of them is like a computer game. One of them is a worksheet. One of them is working with her in reading out loud. And then there's my station. But I don't know what my station is because this is the first time I've been here. So she gets the kids all settled. She walks over to me and she was like, this is the idea that I came up with. We're working on letters. So I have these different sets of stamps. And I have 2 different stamp pads, and we're going to, go through and let them, stamp their C's, their O's, their A's, and then they're going to try to stamp their name. Then we're going to spell out some colors if we have time for that. She's like, they're little clipboards, give them a piece of paper, give them a clipboard, have them ink up the stamp, blah, 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 blah. Are you comfortable with this? And in my head, I'm thinking, do you know do you know what I do? Did you set this up for me personally? No, she didn't, but God probably did, because he probably knew I was a little bit uncomfortable because I didn't know what I was doing, and then bam, I knew what I was doing. Stamping. Yes. Plus, I sincerely hope that we can create a love of stamping in some other ones. And my peanut was ahead of the game, clearly, because we stamp all the time. Side note on this little leaf. So I didn't want to switch up the colors too much. I wanted them to go, but I wanted them to be a little bit different. So I used the lightest color of the yellow that I had used for the center to just kind of go over that coloring. So what did Sandy Allnut call it the other day? Glazing? I don't know. I just always just say, just change the color by going over top of it. She got fancy terms. I'm super impressed. Glazing it shall be from now on. I did. So anyway, the stamping was really fun. The kids did really great. The one little girl, she's like, I have ink on my hands. I have to go wash my hands. I have ink on my hands. I have to go wash my hands. And I was like, girl, this is not for you. I have ink on my hands every day. Every day. I go to work. I try to look professional, try to put myself together, and I will go to hand somebody a bond receipt, and I realize that I have alcohol ink, distress ink, some other sort of staining on my hand from crafting the night before. And again, I don't feel bad about it. So I pulled out my Distress Oxides. I don't know if this ever happens to you guys. Tell me if it does, because I want to know. I want to know if I'm the only one. And I knew that I wanted to do a multicolored background to go with the colors that I had picked for my Copic coloring. And I wanted to have multiple colors in the background. Here you can see I'm putting down a little bit of color, blending it out very softly into white so that there will be just a concentration of color over this stencil in the background. And then I'm going to put my little fox and all his little flowers, or her little flowers, depending upon what you decide your fox is. And then I'm going to put it on there so it creates a focal point. But the first time I did it, okay, I covered the entire panel with all of these Distress Oxide colors because I got so excited because this was right after I got the third set. And in the third set, there's a lot of really good lighter colors. And I was just like, I want to use all the colors. I use them all. And then I did use them all. And it was so overwhelming. I'm going to show it to you. But it was just too much. And I'm more of a, like clean and simple. I don't necessarily love a design that has wall-to-wall color unless it is like a scene. And sometimes there are exceptions to every rule. Like I really, sometimes I branch out of the box and people are like, I didn't even know you made that card. And I was like, I didn't even know I'd like this card. So we're on the same page. I am spattering on some Perfect Pearls because shine. That's it. You need no other reason. But so I did it all over the place. All the color everywhere, just edge to edge, the entire background. And then I put my little fox on there and I was like, I don't love this. Like, I just don't love it. And I didn't. So I decided that I was just going to do it again. And that's when I started doing this one. And like I said, I will show you the other one so you can see, just for comparison purposes, the difference in how it looks right now. So here's this one, like where I just went just crazy with and it's not that it's ugly. It's not that it's ugly. It's just not my style. So I prefer the one that is a little bit lighter, has a lot more white space. This little, what does it say? Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being you. Whatever it says. Thank you for being you. Yep. See? Well, I'll just wait until I turn around so that I can actually read it. I just feel like this card is much more my style. And I think with card makers, a lot of times we want to try, and I want to try things that are trendy. I want to, try different techniques and all of those things. But I think it's important to remember whatever it is your style is, no matter what medium that you're using, because if you create it in your style, so for me, that's pretty much clean and simple. I'm not going to lie. I know that I will love the card because it's going to be more up my alley. When I try things, not techniques, not mediums, when I try different styles, like what was the one that was all the rage for a long time? The shabby chic with like all of the flowers and pearls and prima gemstones and distressed papers, and you got 4 layers on your focal point and all of those things. I can look at somebody else's card and be like, wow, that's beautiful. Like that he, whoever has created this little mini masterpiece, and it's gorgeous. If I try to do that, and I have tried, I promise you, if I try to do that, it looks like I snatched some papers up out of my craft room. I cut them into random patterns. I rubbed them in dirt, and then I glued them to my paper. That's pretty much what it looks like if I try to do that. Other people, beautiful masterpieces. Mine, dirty scraps of paper. That's just the reality, because that's not my style. That's not what I like. And somebody else might be able to look at a card that I made in a shabby chic style and be like, no, Kelly, that's really pretty. And sometimes I think as crafters, when we hear other people say that, like when we have a card, we're like, I don't love it. And we hear our friends say, no, that's super pretty. I love the way this is or that is. And we think to ourselves like, thank you so much for loving me and being a supportive friend, but we both know this is hideous. That isn't necessarily true, because to them, that style might be something that they enjoy. So I have just learned over the years that if I want to really love my cards, I need to stay in my own lane. I need to stick to the style that I love. Now, you can love multiple styles. Like, don't think that you have to pigeonhole yourself. You don't. You can love multiple styles. Like, I love a clean and simple, clean and layered, but I love a scene card. And a scene card is wall-to-wall color. I mean, there's a lot going on in a scene card, which is pretty much the exact opposite of a clean and simple card. But I can't stop myself because I love a scene. I love to make them. I think they're pretty. Anywho, putting this card together, constructing this card, a little tip there. When you're doing something like this where you have all of these pieces, parts around your focal point, try to make them one solid piece. So build from the center out, and then it will be much easier to put things where you want them because they'll all be connected. So I did pop this up. But with your pastel coloring, make sure you're putting some dark in. Some dark. Very little dark. Tiny itty bitty bits of dark. But do it. Do it just a little bit. So I just accented this with some clear sequins because my sentiments all tied up right in my focal point, which I love. It makes it super easy. These are a couple of different sizes from the crystal clear sequin mix, which is my favorite one because I love clear sequins because they go with everything. And then I like to fill mine in with some glossy accents. And I believe I added some Wink of Stella to the flowers. I also realized in my, I don't want to call it stress. I guess in my distress over what this background looked like, I completely forgot to outline my images, and some of it needed it. Some of it needed that bold black line. So I actually went in after it was completely assembled and outlined what I could because I'm a psychopath. I wouldn't recommend doing it that way. Do it before you cut them out. I put some clear Wink of Stella on the flowers, and then in the centers, I added some Stardust stickles because I just love all things shiny. I just love them. They're so pretty. I know I'm such a girl. It's fine. I'm good with it. And then that's the whole card. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope that you will try a little bit of that dark color, a little bit of that contrast. Do it. Don't be scared. And I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.